Hi everybody, my name is Erica from Kitchen Table Quilting, and today we're going to be making the mini Plaidish quilt. This was my original quilt right here, but Missouri Star helped me put together a bundle of Tim Holtz Eclectic Elements fabric so we can make this beautiful quilt together. Okay, for the mini Plaidish quilt pattern, you're going to need this custom bundle of Tim Holtz Eclectic Elements fabric. You'll need 1 yard of background fabric, 5 yards of backing fabric, and then just a rotary cutter, a ruler, and of course the mini Plaidish quilt pattern. Let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is separate our fabrics into dark, mid, and light colors. The light colored fabric is going to be your background fabric, so that makes it really easy. You have that. All right, and our dark colored fabrics are going to be the ones that are usually going to be dark blue or dark green or gray or black. So those are pretty easy to pick out. So I'm going to set those aside up here. Got lots of nice textures. If you're not sure if something is dark or a mid-valued fabric, if you take a black and white photo of it with your phone, it makes it a lot easier to see the difference in value. All right, so everything else that's left over is going to be our mid-valued fabrics. So having one single light colored fabric like this makes it a lot easier to define what a mid-valued fabric is, because it's just everything that's not your light fabric or one of these dark ones. So these will be our mid-valued fabrics. Okay, now we're going to be cutting fabric to make block B in the pattern. There's 3 types of blocks in the pattern, A, B, and C, and each one is constructed in the same way using different piece sizes. Each block in the pattern uses the dark, mid, and background fabric. So for block B, we're going to use just a tiny bit of a dark value, some mid value, and mostly background fabric for our block. Okay, so now what I've done is I've cut the pieces for blocks A, B, and C. And I'm going to walk you through all the sizes that you need for each block. So this is block A right here, and for this one you're going to need 4 squares that are 4 by 4 inches of the dark fabric. You're going to need 4 pieces that are 1.5 by 4 inches of a mid-valued fabric, and 1 1.5 inch square of the background fabric. For block B, we're going to need 4 3 by 3 inch squares of the background fabric. We'll need 4 1.5 inch by 3 inch pieces of the mid-valued fabric, and 1 1.5 inch square of the dark valued fabric. And for block C, we'll need 4 3 by 4 inch pieces of the mid-valued fabric plus a 1.5 inch square. This one is a little bit different because it's going to use 2 different fabrics for these smaller strips. We're going to use 2 1.5 by 4 inch dark value pieces and 2 1.5 by 3 inch background fabric pieces. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to assemble the blocks. Each block A, B, and C are all assembled in the same way. I'm going to show you how to assemble block B. So the first thing that you're going to do is sew each of these pieces on the left together. So I've got these assembled here to show you like this. Okay, so now we'll add the 3rd square on each row. I'm just going to pin these. Okay, I like to pin, when I'm pinning my fabrics together, I like to put a pin at the beginning and at the end. If the piece is longer, I'll usually add another pin in the middle, but these are pretty small. So one of the trickiest parts of making this quilt is making sure that the seams line up with this small square in the middle of each block, so I like to be really careful. Even though these are small pieces, I still pin to make sure that everything is accurate. Okay, now we're going to press the blocks. I like to press my seams open, But if you follow the instructions in the pattern, there are instructions to press your seams to the side. And if you follow those for each block, your seams will nest throughout the quilt. But I still like to press mine open. All right. So next, for our next step, we're going to sew these two pieces together right here. So it's really important when you pin these that you pin the intersection at each intersection to make sure that your seams line up. This pattern is very forgiving. So if you are not good at matching your seams, it will, I think, be less noticeable in this quilt than in other projects. So don't worry too much about your seams matching, but do your best. And it does help to pin. Oh dear. Now I'm going to press that open. So now we're just going to sew this last piece on. So I'm going to do that real quick and come right back. Okay, I've just finished sewing my blocks together. Here's the B block that I just made. And then we have the A and the C blocks here that are constructed in just the same way. One thing that is a little bit different is that the C block is a rectangle, and it's going to play two different roles in the quilt, and you'll see that it's got these two vertical pieces are dark valued and these two are background fabric, but otherwise construction is just the same. This block will end up 8.5 inch square, this block is 6.5 inch square, and block C here is 8.5 by 6.5 inches. Now I'm going to show you how they fit into the quilt. There's two different row heights. These rows right here will be 8.5 inches high, every other row, and these ones will be 6.5 inches high. Block A will go in the 8.5 inch rows, you can see right here. Block B will go in the 6.5 inch rows. And block C will go in both. On the 8.5 inch rows, it will be oriented this way, and on the 6.5 inch rows, it will be turned this way. So then you'll sew your blocks into rows and then sew the rows together. The quilt ends up 9 blocks wide by 11 blocks tall, which is 64 inches by 78 inches. Thanks for making the mini Plaidish quilt with me today. If you'd like what you saw, you can find me on Instagram at Kitchen Table Quilting or on kitchentablequilting.com. Happy sewing!